Greece is ours. The gods of war have blessed us. Ares has given us his strength on the field of battle. Athena the wisdom for outstanding strategy. Apollon leading our arrows to the hearts of our enemies. Zeus the courage to fight for what is his. But the war is not over till Sparta experiences peace once more. An army had already made landfall and raised Ariminum. 6 more to go. Homer would sail across and hit Asculum. The emperor himself intends to take Taras with the support of the Sarmatian prince and admiral of the Spartan fleet. It was around this time Agamedes, the firstborn son of Eugenius, reached adulthood. His mind was so developed and mature, he was given administrative responsibilities at the age of just 14, similarly to his grandfather Acritatus actually. Which was why Sparta, for the first time, didn't have the firstborn son as the heir. Agenor, a young boy showing experience with the sword, just like the current ruler of Sparta, would receive that honor instead, if he comes of age, that is. Rome wasn't the only enemy still scheming against us. Ever since our conquest of Germania, the Sweboz sought refuge in the Alps, a perfect position for them to consolidate their power. By now, they had finally found the courage to strike back at us again. A foolish mistake. Our army at Noria was originally waiting for the supply lines to open up again for an invasion of Cisalpine. However, with the current situation, time for them was better spent on marching into the Alps. Herodotus was in a prime position to go for Rome. He and his Sarmatian horses took up a position in the mountains, splitting their reach. It was fine though, Rome was utterly defenseless, and it gave us time to recruit a few more mercenaries for the army. Plus, neither Eugenius nor Homer had arrived yet. But it didn't stop him from besieging the city. It sallied out and shortly after, getting defeated soundly at the expense of Sarmatian lives. Its walls were ours within minutes after that. However, after our torches found their way inside, these massive walls of theirs defended nothing but ashes and dust. Until it was fully renovated years later. Homer, that drunk fool, was well on his way to assist in the burning of Italy. Yet his idiocy continued to amaze me. He completely forgot anything about supplies for his men while at sea, expecting the southern fleet to help on that front. But they were too focused on assisting the emperor reaching Taras and all the other southern towns. Although I will say he still managed to raise Asculum. That doesn't shield him from his incompetent deeds though. If only he didn't reach the age of 14. Eugenius was as decisive as ever once his men came ashore. Taras was raised for 2 reasons. 1 because of Rome, and 2 due to the Greeks living there were old supporters of Pyrrhus way back in the day of King Ares. They will learn in time to respect Sparta. The noble women of Sparta pulled their strings, embezzling gold for the crown, so we at least could make sure no slums spread throughout the cities. Cosentia was the next target. It was the only one Carthage could have stolen away from us. Let's make sure vengeance is for us and us alone. This garrison drew its last breath in misery, only taking less than 200 Spartans with them. To be fair, the credit could also go to Eugenius himself for being such an exceptional commander. Beneventum, the last settlement of Magna Graecia, was set ablaze as well. So much has happened here in the past. The fall of Pyrrhus, our Sarmatian brethren, and Spartan casualties beyond counting from when Gallienus invaded Italy years ago. Within the next few weeks, Avratium fell as well, leaving a single battered Roman legion in Pannonia without a home. They would in the future get destroyed in a failed siege of Secundum. At least Gallienus can now rest easy, knowing his debt has been paid. Up in the Alps, it was clear to see the Spartans had underestimated the Sweboz forces. Right before our hoplites marched into their territory, they received a welcome party of around 5,000 Germanic warriors. The commander of the army made a feint retreat, hoping to catch them off guard. And in a heroic fashion, he absolutely smashed them, hunted down the stragglers, and set up a camp to replenish this army. But the situation actually turned out to be a bit more complicated. Yes, even more than just the large armies. The Lexuvi, our Gallic trading partners, have proven to be rather effective in warfare. They can hold off Britannic invasion forces in the north, keep the status quo with Carthage in the south, and still expand eastwards into the Germania and the Alps. They didn't want our armies in their lands, and if we as much as just thought about crossing through anyway, we could risk another war at the same scale as the one we had with Rome from when it began so far ago. We did our best in trying to persuade them, even sending gifts their way. Sure, it did help, but it was too slow. The Spartan general took a gamble and crossed through their lands anyway, no matter the price. He had to deal with the last Sweboz stronghold. Yet an attack on their town wasn't needed, as they settled it out by themselves. The village was to our right, and from the same direction the reinforcing garrison will most likely approach this battle from. But to confirm this theory, scouts were sent out to watch our rear in case of an unexpected ambush. The Germanic vanguard stormed towards us with the haste of Hermes. However, their light armor made them vulnerable to our archers, shredding them to pieces. With the second army now in sight, the commander swapped his flanks and personally led the hoplites, whose task was to hold off the reinforcements. The thing is, the Germanic army lacked proper coordination and attacked in a massive blob, making it easy for Sparta to send units around them to surround their position. This expedition meant the end of over 2,000 Spartan warriors, if we add the losses from the last battle as well. Most of them were either foreigners or helots, so we can't actually complain. Anyway, the town was ours, and the Sweboz destroyed for good. If we didn't do it, the Luxuvi would have, with them sending their own forces in this direction. Back in Cisalpine, we have the Eravisci. Ever since our forced migration through their lands, they've hated our guts. But I must admit, even I would have attacked Sparta back then, with how weak they were. Years later, after kicking them out of Pannonia and Noria, this was all that remained. Our armies were on their borders, ready to finish them off. First we came into contact with the Apuani. Not willing to waste their lives on a foolish war, they surrendered their arms and became a client state of Sparta. This gave the three present generals a second road to attack from. Eugenius and Homer would go the obvious way to Patavium, while Herodotus snuck around in a quest to capture Medlan. A successful move that brought peace and stability back to the west. Eugenius made it. He managed to lead his people out of the burning menace that once was Sparta. With all of the Spartan power focused in Italy and the Alps, all the other borders were vulnerable to attack. It was thus time for the many armies of Sparta spread out to the different corners of the realm. Herodotus would stay in Latium to both protect it from the Western superpowers and also supervise the restoration of the former Roman Republic as an economic powerhouse. The goal was for it to become one of the main sources of income for the empire. Homer returned to Sarmatia to guard our main trade routes and support our Bosporan friends and official ally of Sparta. Eugenius chose to go home to Greece, where he would tutor his heir Agenor, so he could reach his potential and in future lead Sparta into glory. Other than that, we had two more armies in Germania, while the last stood in Thrace protecting the sanctuary of the great gods. Food and trade flow through Sparta better than ever before. In turn also because Rhodes and Egypt both ceased hostilities after we destroyed Rome. They saw no reason to continue fighting, and neither did Eugenius. The Rhodians even took their apology a step further and allowed themselves to be client-stated. The royal family continued to grow. Eugenius had even become a grandfather. The peace lasted for almost 5 years. However, the tension grows in the west. The two allies of Sparta, the Luxuvi and Carthage, have gone to war with one another, both wanting Sparta to choose a side. What will the emperor do? Perhaps nothing at all and wait for his moment, or maybe conquer them both. I will leave that up to you, as I will share the save file over on our Discord server. If you aren't part of it yet, I will leave a link to it in the comments below. Next up, we're gonna have another story, a story focused in the east, and I will save the rest for the future. But until the next story, goodbye.